Hello and welcome to Facetious Gaming. My name is SerAaron and today I'm doing another GIMP tutorial. Mainly because you guys over at Doku have been asking for this and it's been like 2 or 3 months since my last one. So let's get straight into it. I'm just trying to remember what I said I would go over this episode. I think it was the effects tab, which is all of this stuff, all of that stuff, and I'll do layers next episode, because that's relatively simple, and so this is the complicated stuff. So let's open up a file here. What should we have? Pictures, renders. These things are called C4Ds. They're like renders that you can put over the top of various images. What looks cool? Doesn't really matter. I guess that. Yes, you. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you this. So this is the File tab. Here you can make a new document. You can go into that tab, which I don't really know much about, and I've never used before. I don't know what they do. You can open an old project. You can, I don't know. All of these pretty much mean what they say. Then we have undo in the edit tab. Now this will go back to the last action that you made. So if I make a box and then I go edit, undo, it will go back a step. And you can view this in your undo history, which is this tab of this box here. Or you can just press Ctrl Z or Ctrl Y to redo, which is what I do, and I highly suggest that you do it too. Then there's cut, copy, paste, all of this stuff. Now, this is all also available when you right click. So usually when copy and pasting, usually when copy and pasting, you'll just press Ctrl C, copy, paste, and then there you go. But if you want to do it manually, then right click as opposed to going up here, because it's just easier. The advantage of right clicking is that you also have this option, which there's no hotkey for, which is paste into. And what this does is if I then have a selection like that and then I click paste into, it will only paste into the area that I have selected, and you'll only be able to see that. And then once you click outside of this yellow tagline, it will switch to it in the selection. And I don't know, you can't move that around once you've clicked outside. The other thing about copy and paste, if we go back, if we grab this CV and then say this is similar to the paste into, only it kind of works in reverse. Is like, say you only want this bit. Once you've like grabbed all this bit, then you just draw another box over the top of it, and you kind of only select that bit, and you can't drag that. You can move this image, but you can't make that box bigger once you've drawn it. However, you can add more boxes by holding Shift and putting in more boxes like that. And this works with the other select tools as well. Or you can get rid of stuff by holding Control and doing the same thing. And then you click outside and you wind up with a very strange looking image there. So then also in edit, we have delete, which you can just hit delete, which makes things, you know, so if I grab that and then just delete, and it gets rid of it. Now, because that was in a different layer, which I'll get onto next episode, you'll see that it's done that. As I'm actually doing this, I'm thinking that it might be better to talk about layers right now along with this stuff, because it does sort of apply. So yeah, why not? Let's grab that. Now we can make a new layer by coming here and clicking on this little icon here. And so this is the pasted layer, and I can sorry, that won't reselect it. That will just add that new layer. So I can move that around now. If I want to cut that down like it was before, then I need to select it and put it in again and do all of this stuff again. But then that's saved to the pasted layer, and as long as I have this layer selected, I can move this around independently from the background. And you can add as many layers as you want, and you can name them, change the dimensions and the fill type. It's basically like making a new document but putting it on top. And layers are affected by transparency, so you'll see this layer here. Oops. This layer here has this box of transparency here, and if it's here, then it will be filled by what's behind, and if it's here, then it will just see through, because this layer is also transparent. Which means if I then select all transparency and fill it with black or whatever, then that shows through as well. So the background is really what you want to put like your absolute basic colors in. So what I'm actually going to do here as an example, once I get rid of that, is I'm going to grab this and cut and new layer, paste, and then click out. Then if we go into layer, we can make the layer to the image size, which means that the maximum image size, which is where these transparency boxes end, or basically where the white starts, the yellow tagline will latch onto that and stay there, as opposed to being smaller like it was before, or sometimes it's bigger. So now this will be our background. We can edit this by right clicking on it and clicking on edit. So we're going to call this background, and now we can, I don't know, get a gradient and make it like that, and then boom, and you see that this is independent from this, and we can click on the little eye to make that invisible, so we can only see it, or we can also lock it so that we don't accidentally, if we have this layer accidentally selected and we want to do edits, we don't accidentally start doing edits to that layer. And then I can like blend this or whatever it may be that I want to do with it. For some reason it's not working. I don't know. Oh, that's blur, that's why. Yeah, there we go. So I make that visible again, lock these, and there we go. So that's pretty much how layers work. Also, you can select a layer and change the opacity, and that's independent per layer. So that's good if you're doing like if it's basically superimposing the image onto this one, so then you can like work within the guidelines of the image above or whatever. Generally speaking, layers are only useful when you're doing like graphic design work and photoshopping and all of that sort of stuff. When it comes to Minecraft texturing, which is what this tutorial will eventually lead on to, or this tutorial series rather will eventually lead on to that. It will you don't really need layers, sorry, because you're working on such a small scale, which I've said before. So then what have we got? The rest of this you don't really need or use. Then we have different selection methods, which are also available here. The View tab I don't really use, apart from this one thing here called Show Grid, and Snap to Grid. This is particularly useful when making Minecraft textures, obviously, because then if we go into Image, we can configure the grid, and we can make this 16-bit, or in the case of Dokucraft, 32-bit, and that means we suddenly know exactly how big each texture tile is going to be. I'll just show that off on here. If we edit this with GIMP, and we go View Grid, Configure Grid to 32. There we go, and suddenly we know exactly how big each texture tile is, and if we have Snap to Grid, then when we're pasting stuff in, it will automatically snap to that area. And let's turn the opacity back up on that, and we can get rid of the grid. So that's pretty much all you use in Show. That's all you use in the View tab, or that's all I use at least. I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm doing this tutorial from the point of a texture artist. If I did things with GIMP other than Minecraft textures, which I do occasionally, I would probably learn how to use some of these tools more efficiently or whatever, because I'm sure they're very useful. I just don't know anything about them, because I don't generally need to use them that much. Although I do a bit of graphic design work here and there. So then we have Duplicate, which will duplicate the whole workspace as one layer, as we can see. Actually, no, it won't. It will do it. It'll just duplicate everything. Sorry. Yeah, so that's kind of useful if you want to make a change that could have a really big effect on the whole thing, or you want to make, well, a duplicate copy. You know, it's, you know, I'm sure you can see the uses of that. What else is there? Although most of the time, if you're looking to duplicate in terms of copy and paste, you might as well just copy and paste. So it depends. I don't know. I don't use it that much. This is the mode, and this is really useful when you accidentally get a grayscale image, which I've done occasionally. Scanning in objects on my scanner sometimes does it as grayscale automatically, and I don't know how to change that on my scanner. So then I put it into GIMP and put it on red, green, blue color, and then that means that I can actually edit with colors. If we put it on grayscale, you'll see that well, it goes all grey, black and white, but if we try and put color in, then it's just dark, and there's a lot of jitter on that. I think my mouse is just sensitive. So yeah, and if we then turn grayscale off, then it doesn't go back. But switching between things, yeah, now color will appear again. So it's weird. Transform, this is just rotating, and it rotates the whole image, not just the layer. As of course we're in the image properties tab, we can flip it. We can do this here as well, of course, but and we can do that with individual layers, as you can see here. And of course we can rotate the whole thing like that. But this will do it to the whole image as one, as opposed to in layers. Print size, I don't print stuff, so, but that's basically sorting out the print resolution. Scale image, this is very, very useful. And yeah, I'll use an example here. So let's select a 256. There we go, 256 area, because that has the same aspect ratio as 32-bit. And if we make a new layer, or a new image rather, and 256, I forgot it doesn't do it automatically. So 256, 256, okay, and then paste that in, and then we go into scale image, and you'll see why this is very useful now, because it's the same aspect ratio. We can make a 32-bit texture out of that. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do this. So, on the one way that we can do it is we can just straight up scale the image like that. Now, there's a little setting here. We leave the resolution alone. You don't want to touch that. There's a setting here called interpolation. Now, interpolation is interesting, to say the least. Cubic interpolation, or pretty much any of these three settings, will try to adjust the colors according to the resolution. Now, if you have no interpolation, then it will literally just scale the images up according to the aspect ratio, or down. So that means that you can scale a 16-bit texture up to 32-bit and not have it blur and blend and stuff. So then, oops, didn't do that properly. Scale image to 32-bit with no interpolation, and you see it's not blended it at all, and we're left with a load of random pixels which don't really look that good as a Minecraft texture or anything, because there's no tiling, but for something else it can be useful. For example, this iron texture, I made this by getting an actual or a higher resolution picture of a sheet of iron. Actually, I think it was steel, a sheet of steel, and then I scaled it down to 32-bit and cleaned up the sort of pixelation that you see here, and it looks great in my opinion. So it's a really nice way of making textures pretty quickly that actually look pretty good. And now then we have the layers tab. I'll get back to that in a second. We have the layers tab, which was pretty much similar to the image tab, only with the layer. Only when you scale it, only there's some other options like deleting the layer and changing the layer boundary size, and you saw me use this stuff earlier. And then we have the colors tab. Now this is the tab that I use the most, particularly when texturing. And I don't use color balance because I don't really work with cyan, magenta, and yellow ways of changing color. I prefer to use hue saturation, which will allow you to change the hue of something, which is basically just the color. Ignore this bit, don't play around with that. It's kind of weird, I don't really know how to use it. Basically the default is that 0 is red, and the default is whatever you started. 0 is whatever you started with, and then anything else is a different hue of that. So let's make it kind of pinky, and then we can make it more saturated. Now this is just the color intensity. We can make it, if we make it minus 100% saturation, then it becomes completely desaturated and is effectively grayscale. Or we can make it very saturated, and well, you can see for yourself. Then we have the lightness option. I don't tend to use this lightness option because it lights things as a whole. You can see it makes some very sharp edges sometimes, and generally it has a kind of weird effect on the picture because it's changing the contrast as well. So when I want to play around with the brightness, I click on the brightness and contrast setting, which means I can change the brightness up and the contrast according to how I want it. If you don't know what brightness and contrast are, then brightness is basically how bright it is. You can see that minus numbers it gets darker, plus numbers it gets lighter. And the contrast is how dark the dark areas are and how bright the bright areas are. And this little box here that says preview should be ticked, and you want it to be ticked because otherwise you can't see what you're doing. I need some water. Okay, so then we have colorize. Now the default of colorize has the hue at 180, which is sort of light blue, and you can play around with this. So then 0 is red, which is why I was getting confused earlier, and also 360 is red, but it's on the magenta side as opposed to the orange side. You can also play around with the saturation here and the lightness again, and perversely the lightness setting on this one is different again to the lightness setting on the brightness contrast and also the hue saturation. So there's 3 different ways that you can play around with the lightness. Actually no, I lie, there's many ways that you can play around with the lightness, because we also have the levels tab, and this is kind of hard to get used to. It's, I don't know, I don't like using it. It's basically contrast again. And there's another way of doing it, which is curves, and I don't know. It's basically how do you like to work with colors and images and whatnot. I personally prefer to just do it with bars and stuff, but like I said before, GIMP offers pretty much every way that you can think of in terms of playing with settings and playing with colors and all of these different things. So whilst I prefer to use hue saturation and colorize in brightness and contrast. Other people might prefer to use the levels and curves and color balance. Then we have the desaturate setting, which pretty much does what it says, and there's 3 different versions which you can see for yourself how they work. And then we have the posterize setting, which I'll show on this. So if we desaturate this, then we end up with black and white and grey squares, or pixels. And then if we posterize it, you'll see what posterize does is it both adds contrast, sharpness, and reduces blurring all at once. And this is absolutely amazing for making pixel art with. Like, I can't stress that enough, because if we go into posterize and we change the posterize level to I mean, with this image you're talking about 9 or 10 maybe, and it basically blends the colors where color needs blending. Sorry, it doesn't. It removes blending by making the sort of, you see how these colors are these shades are kind of similar. Now that I've blurred it up a bit, if we go into posterize now, you'll see it has a much bigger effect, and we can change around with it. We can play around with this. Generally speaking, I like to go for about 20 for that Dokucraft look, but in terms of pixel art, you can go up to about 10, or I'd say about 15 looks good for this. And suddenly the thing takes on a whole new form. I mean, it's gone from looking like this, which is a sort of weird explosion of ringlets and waves, into this, which is kind of like a, I don't know, like a tree trunk maybe? It's weird. It's sort of, doing this sort of reveals new detail and stuff. And it's my new favourite way to make textures, because like I said with this, I'm actually going to show you how I made this. I took a texture from another texture pack. Okay, there we go. So now we have Orion from SerAaron's in this, and I made sure that it was completely desaturated. You have to do this because if it has any color, then it starts to sort of mess up the colorings with the posterized setting. As you can see, it's like this was sort of brown and yellow and white and dark brown, and when you've posterized it, it brings in like bright pink and dark red, and I don't know why. So you have to desaturate it, otherwise it starts doing that. And then I'm gonna change the contrast slightly, so that it's a bit brighter, like that. And then I'm going to scale the image down to 32-bit with no interpolation, and we end up with that. And you see that it's blurred slightly around here, and we've got all these bolts which have sort of screwed up in terms of their pixel size. But if we then posterize this and take it to about 21, that should do, and you'll see that it's a very similar texture to this. I think I actually posterized it a bit more then, because that's kind of off. So what looks about right? Yeah, about 15. Yeah, that looks about right. Then I just added in the bolts, changed the shading a little bit, blurred it more, posterized it again, that sort of thing. But that's how I make a lot of my textures now, because it's just easier. But then the posterize is also useful for other textures which aren't in a Dokucraft style, because it's a great way of making that pixel arty look, which is basically where you have no shading or no blending. Because this could very easily be blended like that, and let's take this, and like that could very easily be like that. But suddenly it doesn't match with Doku textures as much. So posterize is a really great way of making pixel arty textures. I also did that with this texture, which is one of John Smith's. Now, I'm not releasing this texture pack, so I can do whatever I want. This is a personal texture pack. But John Smith's style is very different from Doku's. So this originally had like a lot of random pixels in it, so I grayscaled it, posterized it, and there we go. That's my secret to making textures, pretty much. Then we have invert, which is always fun. It basically just takes whatever color is there and swaps it. But then another thing that you can do is value invert. And this is very different, because this will take let's value invert it again. This will take the texture, the colors here, and swap them with the colors here in a sort of a kind of strange way. It half inverts it and it half swaps the color in terms of its darkness and lightness, which is an interesting effect, which I've used in a couple of textures. So yeah, there's that. Then we have these, which aren't really used that much, apart from color to alpha, which will allow you to pick a color and make it transparent, like so. And that is literally taken all the red out of that image and made it transparent, leaving only the cyan and the yellow that was in this image left over, which looks kind of strange. And that's kind of useful for like something like this, where maybe I want to then put this on top of something. So I'll color to alpha all of the white, and then I'm just left with the black and grey pixels. It's taken all of the white out of the image, and then I can put that onto something, so like say this, and it suddenly looks like it's cracked, actually. It's quite a cool effect. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Oh, I forgot to mention that you can cut with Control X, but I probably didn't really need to mention that. So that's the colors tab. That took a lot longer than I thought it was gonna, because I went over color posterize. But I think it was worth mentioning, because like most of the people that are watching this are from the Dokucraft forum, and I think that that is a method of making textures which needs to be shared with you guys. Tools. I don't use tools. I mean, most of these are available here if I do need to use them. In fact, they all are. This is the toolbox. This is just the tools tab. This has all of these available. Filters. I'll come back to filters because we've got these two. Windows. This just shows all of the windows that are open, which is all of these. And it will also open the toolbox, and this if you accidentally close it like that and you're like, oh no, where did that go, how can I get it back? Just go on Windows, recently closed docs and reopen it. You can also like add stuff to this, so you can add like color map, like that, and it will open up another dock, and you can have tons of these open at once. But generally speaking, I would only ever need Toolbox and this one open, because this has the channels, paths, and undo history on it. Channels, this is basically what you can see. So this is, I only want to see red, or I don't want to see any green that's in this, or I don't want to see any blue, and then it's only showing red and alpha, or I don't want to see alpha and you can't see any of it. I honestly don't really know why you need to use that ever. Paths, I think this is for animation, I'm not sure, and I don't know how to use it, so yeah. And then we have help, which has tips of the day, like you can get context sensitive help from most GIMP features. I don't know what that means. Yeah, like the help tab doesn't really, it has like manuals and stuff in it, and I should probably read those at some point so I can work out how to use the rest of the functions, but right now I don't really need to. So then back to filters, and this is the last thing. We have repeat commands, which will allow you to redo the last thing that you did, as in do it again as opposed to just redo something that you've undone. And then we have these filters, and there are a lot of them. And they all do different things. So I'm actually going to come back to this, come to think of it, because there's a lot of stuff here and I don't really want this tutorial to go on much longer than it already has. I mean, it's already at about 30 or 40 minutes. So yeah, I'm going to come back to this. You don't really need it in text processing. That and I'm tired. You don't really need these when it comes to texture editing, but I think it's pretty good to have because you can make textures with them. But yeah, I'll come back to these because some of them are quite complicated. They have a lot of settings. Like each one of these has like so many things. So yeah, I'll come back to filters. Anyway, this has gone on long enough, so thank you very much for watching. My name has been SerAaron. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, found it helpful, anything like that, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like or a comment letting me know if I've missed anything, or if there's anything specific that you want me to do a tutorial on, or just saying hi, you know. Camtasia is saying that my computer's being slow now, which means I've been recording too long. So, yeah. Yeah, see you guys later. Next tutorial, hopefully, should be next week, if I can find time. So, yeah. See you guys then, and have fun.